Anyone else like to address the board at this time? Item 6 on the agenda, Mr. Superintendent.
The welcoming Matt Lasco, here on City Manager, and he is going to talk to you about the ConAgra project.
Good evening, President. I'll be semi-brief in my presentation. A lot of what I'm going to speak about was already included. Evening. And I'll just say, again, we're very appreciative of touching on the ConAgra project and providing a little bit of history. I know most of it. After the state purchased the approximate 20 acres for through a partnership with the state, using a $3.1 million grant. Site's obviously been of foremost importance to this community. In 2011, site rose to the top of something that we were very concerned about seeing redeveloped. green light from council. They engaged with a firm out of Columbus known as the Montrose Group. Summer, through that process, the community very well-known firm. On some of the proposed and currently discussed division of responsibility. C, on the other hand, is responsible for due diligence, including the traffic. I want to make clear as well, the request of the developer, they were not the ones seeking the tip. Their ask was, can the city find a way, however that may be, similar to what was considered and approved for the Sawmill Creek project. I think also what differentiates this from set, the previous mentioned public infrastructure improvements, and obviously any this is based on, obviously these are projections and estimations. We are in, in the middle of the site, through the site, which is really, really important. Probably not a site, is going to be the foremost site for a track and fin. That, I tried to be brief, I don't know that I was, but I'm yep, now or potentially later on. But again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lasko. Any questions for Mr. Lasko?
Still have to approve and all that later on in the meeting. So
Right. Thank you very much. Item 7, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. Happy to report winter recess officially starts tomorrow. School is closed, but realistically started today around 2 o'clock. So our students and staff will be out on holiday break. We will return to action on Monday, January 3rd. And we want to wish everyone out there a safe and happy holiday. I was very impressed with the hard work of everyone this year leading up to break. I think the kids as well as the staff are ready for it, and I know they're ready to come back and finish out the year. So it's been good so far. I want to refer over to Julie. She's going to talk a little bit about our Tiger Grant recipients that her and Mrs. Mast awarded last week.
I'm going to come a little closer. We are having some difficulties with the streaming system. It's not picking up the mic super good, so if you could just speak up. It didn't catch our speakers, but for whatever reason, it's catching you guys. So every year we have, it's actually a lot of fun, the opportunity to give out Tiger Mini grants. As you know, there's the endowment that sits at the tech from our interest that is gained over there that we are able to disperse teaching staff in the form of these mini grants. So it is a competitive process. $1,000 grant for a team of teachers, like a grade level or a department, or $2,000 grant for the building. So this year we were able to offer 6, and we were able to go out last week. We did our own little prize. And so Mrs. Molly Ryan over at Woodland did one teachers, and they are bringing in the Western Reserve Historical Society. So they will be doing, I forget, some live action, hands-on sort of
History
stuff.
in a box, or
Yep.
they're tracking migratory movement, and they're gonna do that whole section.
And I should also say this is all aligned to the standards, whether they're technology standards. Ryan and Matt Asher were awarded a grant for new robotic for Antonelli. So they'll be working with kids with that. Mrs. Kaufman is teacher at the high school. Math is a Mr. Castor and Mrs. Ainer out at Woodlands. Kids weren't as excited as we were, but they're getting whiteboards that go across the sides of the room and move and do their math across the walls and whatnot. So thought they were, like getting super cool stuff, and it is super cool for math. But they didn't quite make it. They were kind of a little flat on the clapper. We were excited. So, and then we have Mrs. Cotterill over here at Shawnee. She's gonna do some family engagement with our preschool families. So Heidi literally supporting the families in their endeavor. So it was about $4,300 that we were able to award. It was a lot of fun.
And we did ask Molly Ryan if once they complete their study on the migrant suitcase and do their presentation, if they would present to the board how that whole section went, because it sounded really interesting how they're going to do this. So at some point next year they'll do a presentation.
Thanks, Julie.
Standing.
Couple other things quick that kind of came down after the agenda came out, as they usually do. And next month we'll talk a little bit more. I got an email from Mr. Dowdy who was pleased with the 3rd grade reading scores that came in, so we need to break that down a little bit. But we were real happy to hear that. Also, tonight we found out that 2014 Huron graduate Cody Thompson is active for the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm sure everybody will be home watching that on TV. And from my point of view, I just want to personally thank Mrs. Green, Mr. Ward, and Mr. Slocum for their service. With Mrs. Green and Mr. Slocum, we go back a ways. It's my first gig here, and I really appreciate your support when I was here the first time. This time, miss seeing you at the meetings, but I know I'll see you in the community. Mr. Ward, thank you for your service too, for everything you've done. So I just want to say I appreciate that from me. Thank you very much. That is all I have.
Item 8 on the agenda. Madam Treasurer.
The financial reports that I have sent you are covering expenditures through November of 2021. We are 5 months into the fiscal year, so we should be at approximately 42% at our revenues and expenses. When I looked at the general fund, we were at 43%, so we're right on target, and expenses in all funds were at 42.8, so we're right there where we should be. The general fund revenue for November 2021 was $20,000 less than last year. However, for the fiscal year, we're almost $95,000 up. So, breaking that down that way. Donations for the month of November totaled $15,038.53. It was all cash, and it went towards the high school science department, the Huron Memorial Scholarship Fund, the Sandy Lunch Program, and the Huron Football Program. When I was reviewing some of the funds, I discovered that the high school speech and debate club is no longer active. So I talked with Mr. Harkleroad, who was the former advisor, and he had requested that those funds, $51.05, be moved over to the high school principal. Did have an activity and purpose statement for Biddy Bowling, which bowling started just the end of November. There's still a few of those statements out. Cindy and I are emailing those advisors, trying to get them in. So you'll probably see some of those come in during the next few months. We have one contract on the agenda that's just an informational item, and it's to Vincent, and that's to install the TVs that we purchased with ESSER funds for replacing the smart boards. We had an audit for fiscal year 20 Medicare reimbursement. That's finished finally, and all of our cost reporting and it has been uploaded to the MIT system, and it's all complete. I did talk to Julian and Grube. They are in the final stages of the fiscal year 21 financial audit. What's really nice about that is we are able, with the SCView program, to just give them access, and they pretty much download everything they want. So it hasn't been very interruptive, but they are almost finished. And just as another informational item, effective January 1st of next year, minimum wage in Ohio is moving to $9.30, and that will affect some of our substitute classified employees. And I just wanted to give you that information.
While you're at it, Madam Treasurer, item 9.
Item A is to approve the financial statements for November 30th as presented. Item B, we had $15,038.53 in cash donations to those various funds. Talking with Mr. Huckleroad, $51.05. I would recommend moving that from Fund 29216, which used to be the Speech and Debate Club, to the High School Building Fund, Principal Fund. The Biddy Wrestling budget in purpose statement was included, and then we had the contract for Vincent, which is just informational. I would recommend that you approve those items for our December agenda.
Motion to approve A through E under agenda 9.
So moved.
Madam Treasurer. Discussion. Madam Treasurer. Oh.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Slocum?
Yes.
Mrs. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. Item A is to recommend to approve classified substitutes for the 21-22 school year. We have Kelly Kozich and Mark Craig on there as classified subs. If you remember, Mark Craig was hired to replace Mr. Zeck, who's retiring as mechanic. And like Mr. Zeck, Mr. Craig is able to drive a bus and do many other tasks, so we appreciate that. Item B is to recommend academic supplementals for the 21-22 school year. You can see these supplementals are all supporting the high school Saturday school detention program with the employees as listed. Item C is recommended athletic supplementals, and these are typical stuff for this time of year. You can see below we have Biddy Boys basketball, some stuff from the soccer tournament, and some 8th grade football left over, as well as other basketball supplements. Typical supplementals. D is to recommend the approval of non-paid days. Chelsea Thompson, a 15-day non-paid period, and Aaron Smith, 1 non-paid day, which is today. Her mother is getting married in Hawaii, so she would like to attend that, and did. So she, right, so those are on there for non-paid days. Item E, recommend to approve compensation for Jordan Stutzman. This is a music and professional development at 8 hours, $25 per hour. Item F is to recommend to approve the retirement of Rick Gadd. Reluctantly, like Mr. Zeck, Mr. Gadd would like to retire effective May 27th of next year. He constructed right where we're sitting among many, many other things for us, so he will be missed. Item G is to recommend to approve unpaid leave for Becky Schoolcraft, and this is beginning December the 13th. There is no date that she will be back. We wanted to leave this open because if we approved a date for her to return, she could not return before that date unless there was board approval. So she is on unpaid leave, and we hope to have her back as soon as possible. And that will take care of the recommendation items under 10.
Motion A through G. Discussion? Madam Treasurer. Madam Treasurer.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. Slocum?
Yes.
Mrs. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item 11, school volunteers. Mr. Treasurer.
We have 2 volunteers as recommended, Rose Marsh and Jason Schweifer. As we said in our pre-agenda meeting, our treasurer is so strict she won't even pay her own son. So he is volunteering here. That's what we like to see. Bowling, and I don't know what Miss Marsh is doing, but they will be volunteers, and they've done all the stuff FBI, BCI.
Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Madam Treasurer.
Mrs. Mass?
Yes.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Slocum? Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item 12, Mr. Superintendent, an MOU.
Yeah, this is an MOU that we've done in the past between Huron City Schools and Bowling Green State University. This takes care of student teaching experiences, field experience, so they can place student teachers with us. They can have people come in, do time for field experiences and other educational items. And you can see in the contract, spells out everything specifically.
So moved. Second?
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Slocum?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item 13, school compensation agreement.
Yes, this is school compensation agreement as was discussed earlier tonight with the city of Huron, and this is to recommend approval of the compensation agreement with the Ardagh property in the city of Huron.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Madam Treasurer.
Mrs. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Slocum?
Yes.
Mrs. Mass?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Motion passed.
And item 14.
This is an agreement. City of Huron proposed a tax increment financing with NIA Harmon Group, and this is in relationship to tonight's discussion on the ConAgra property.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I just have a couple questions. Is there a reason that this has to be passed this evening and cannot wait until the new board is seated in January?
From my point of view, we've been discussing this since I've been here with the city, and the idea was we were going to put it on the agenda as soon as it was ready to go, because the project needs to move forward. So it's as simple as that, from my view.
Okay. Second question I had is, we've been at this point before with a previous developer that wanted to do residential development, and then that didn't happen. Are, it seems like there's still a lot of hoops to jump through as far as, you know, I don't know if you've gone as far as soil studies, and can that property hold the weight of townhouses and apartment buildings and things like that. So is this happening regardless, or are there still things that need to be figured out?
Previous question. Or candidly, at a bit of a standstill with or, but obviously without knowing if we can even, still a lot to do, and a lot of things still have to be.
Do you have a kind of rough estimate of when dirt will be moved, starting to be moved down there?
Yeah, great question. I think realistically, well, there's two answers. One, in the perfect. Project that when it's done, the money's on the tax people to kill it.
And your guesstimate or estimate of the tax bill being $4,500 per unit, per townhouse unit. I mean, that could be that, it could be more, it could be less, just depends on when those are built and everything else.
Yeah.
Motion on the table and a second. Madam Treasurer.
Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Slocum,
Yes.
Mrs. Mass,
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item 15.
This is a resolution that was recommended that be put on for board approval. Senate Bill 1 for this year only made some changes because of all districts are having a tremendously hard time, we know, finding substitute teachers. Basically what the Senate bill did is you can now substitute teach with a high school diploma as long as you are properly have the background FBI BCI check. This is only for this school year to try to fill that void, and I can tell you we've had administrators in this building and administrators in their own building filling in classrooms. So in terms of just I guess a technical legality, it was thought that it was a good idea for a board resolution approving this Senate bill. Is it for ballot?
So moved.
Madam Treasurer.
Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Slocum, Mrs. Mass,
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item 16, board committee reports. Any board member have a liaison or committee report you'd like to submit at this time?
Julie and I already submitted
Oh,
ours,
okay.
so we're good.
Well, one, I think, kind of exciting thing that's coming from Ehovia is they are starting driver's ed at Ehovia. And I don't know how many of you took driver's ed when you were in high school through your school district. But, you know, because they do encompass Huron, Ottawa, and Erie counties, a lot of their students have, let's be real, just transportation issues. They don't drive yet. They don't have family that can drive them different places. So if they can actually take driver's ed while they're at school, then that helps mitigate that problem. And they can also offer it to the students for free because there is a kind of a substantial cost associated with driver's ed now. So it will only be for select students that have been identified by the school as financially in need. And they will take their training during the school day. And so it's like a win-win. I'm really excited about that. You know, it's just been so long since we've seen any school offer driver's ed, and they've got instructors already lined up and a vehicle, and they're good to go. So that's pretty cool.
I'll check it out. It's been a few days of cold weather in a row, so they can pour the water and get going. But I mean, seriously, that's gonna be a ton of excitement, and it'll just grow every year too.
I really don't have a committee report other than to publicly thank Dr. McDonald during my time as liaison for curriculum instruction. Met with her several times along with Holly Charville. This district is fortunate to have two such professionals in two very, very key positions, key leadership positions. So Dr. McDonald, thank you very much. Also with school safety, that's not mine. We pass it along to Mr. Jones, who's not here, but we started that, and that was, you know, since we started that, we reported on numerous enhancements to school safety and security, additional cameras on buses, cameras in the school, of various, and I encourage the future board to continue to do that. As I said, unfortunately, Mr. Jones is not here, but what those revolved around just, it wasn't really a committee, it was communication between the superintendent and that liaison each month over what was going on in terms of the safety and security of our students. Thank you very much, Dr. McDonald, again, and pass that along to Mrs. Charville, and that's all I have. New business.
New business, we'd like to recommend to set a date and time for the Huron City Schools budget hearing, organizational meeting, and January Board of Education regular meeting, which we have set for January 4th, 2022 at 6 p.m. up here. And as we speak, Mrs. McDonald is hammering out dates to propose. We'll have them ready prior to that board meeting to look at by email for the future.
So there's nothing for us to approve with regard to A, is that correct? Or is there?
You would want to approve that meeting.
The
Yes.
January 4th at 6?
Yep.
Gotcha. Motion,
So moved.
Madam Treasurer?
Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Slocum.
Yes.
Mrs. Mass,
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item B, I would recommend to name a president pro tempore. I hope I said that right. For the January 2022 board meeting. What this does is it fills the void because obviously, Mr. Ward, your tenure would end at midnight of December 31st. So we have 4 days into the beginning of the organizational meeting with no board president. So this
Call a
is,
special meeting at 11:30,
okay.
just because I can.
Hopefully you get a quorum there. Right. So this would fill that gap and enable us to have a board president for the organizational meeting until we appoint a permanent president for the year. So we need some discussion on who that may be.
Your current
Which-
vice president, I think it's natural.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
I think that's the most natural. I move that Jody Mass is president pro tem in January, for the
Second.
January 4th meeting.
second.
Madam Treasurer?
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Slocum. Mrs. Mass.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Item C was first read of district calendars were worked on our end and on the HEA end. So they're out there and then they'll need to be approved. They can be read through and examine, talk really more about it and approve it at the January meeting. It is. I do not believe there's action required on that. And we do have gifts for our outgoing board members.
Perfect. Open the
Yeah.
paper shredded.
Thank you, sir.
You want us to open them now or wait?
Sure, let's open them.
There's a
It's
lot of
Christmas
shredded
after
paper
all,
in here.
Christmas. Yeah.
I think there's still something down here. Yeah.
Trust me when I say I did not put that bag together. That was
Perfect,
Luann
Al.
and Julie and everybody else.
Use it Friday night.
Dang. It's one, or that one at the same time, so it's, we'll open this one first.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I just did. That's this.
Goes with the red box.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to open it up and it's like, it's not working. Ooh, wow. Oh,
Very weighty.
it is.
This is not a Dollar General item. No disrespect to
This would really hurt if you rolled this at someone. Oh, that's beautiful. Dang.
Thank you.
Can we please line you up for the requisite picture over at our picture
Sure.
wall for posterity's sake?
You can say no, Colin.
Okay. Right, yeah. Yep. You have to formally adjourn after this.
And the apples.
Very nice. Call 911.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Oh, Julie helped a lot. They are. Just take their picture. Makes me want to cry.
Guys have been through a lot together. They have.
I gotta have a run. It was a good day. It was a good day. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Long time.
Been a long run, hasn't it?
Yep.
A lot of stuff.
Heck of a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff.
This reminds me of one of the first gifts I ever got from the administration. Remember, we were handed a book called The Apple and the Worm.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And a little negative book. Remember that?
No.
It's about an anti-teacher union kind of.
And yeah, that was kind of the atmosphere back then, unfortunately.
Nothing read, but nothing great. Yeah, thank
If
you.
I could just say a couple words.
Sure.
Please.
Just wanted to thank each one of you for your service, for your leadership, and your guidance, and you will be greatly missed. Greatly missed. So I thank you for everything you have done for our school system, for the students, the teachers. Thank you. Thanks for.
Appreciate that. Any other new business before this board?
That's it.
I do have some new business. It's going to revolve around untabling an October motion. Fellow board member, 6 years ago, Mr. Jess Hagee passed away. Mr. Hagee served the Huron City Schools for 42 years as a teacher of biology, health, physical education, and driver's education. I want to emphasize that. You know, if we invited everyone back, every retiree, alive or otherwise, who served us as a teacher or an administrator in excess of 40 years, it'd be a pretty small party. So I want to emphasize that. He was the first gym teacher at the existing Huron High School building, serving in this capacity from 1958 to 1998. His 30-year career as a coach in 4 sports includes serving as a football assistant to Paul Green, Tony Manafo, and Tony Legando, all of whom are in the Ohio High School Football Coaches Hall of Fame. 5 years even as head golf coach. As basketball coach, he served as assistant to Dick Klein and Dino Caparini, and as head coach for 19 seasons, led the Tigers to 247 wins, 7 conference championships, 5 sectional championships, 1 district championship, back-to-back perfect seasons, a 42-game regular season winning streak. He was a Northwest Ohio Achievement Award recipient. He came to us, and I kind of like this part of the story too. He came to us after a standout football and basketball career at the University of Virginia, being drafted to play professional football with the Ottawa Rough Riders. This is not a native Huronite. I always like those stories. You know, there are those who say Huron is resistant to outsiders. Coming from Virginia, one might argue this is the ultimate outsider. Dan Angelo of the Sandusky Register said, to say that Jess Hagee has seen it all as a high school teacher and coach is an understatement about the size of Texas. Tony Legando said, here's a guy who coached and taught kids in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. How many people out there do you know who could relate to kids over that long of a time? Dave Brown, former athletic director, said, it is safe to say that Jess Hagee has spent more time in our gymnasium than anyone alive. Jess Hagee's service to our school community was beyond extensive. It was profound. So I now ask that we untable the motion from October, that now and forever the Huron High School Gymnasium be named the Jess Hagee Gymnasium with a prominently displayed sign at no cost to the school district. Second.
to have a discussion?
Yes,
So there is a motion.
there is a motion, I just made it.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's right.
All right, second.
Discussion.
I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but when that was brought up before, I was not present at the board meeting. But I do remember there being an email that was sent from Mr. Jones. He had done some correspondence with OSBA, and I think the legal department of OSBA, stating that there are lots of different steps that need to be taken before the school system actually names a portion of the school after a community member. You know, no disrespect to Mr. Haggy at all, but I don't name the gymnasium without doing some of the steps that were outlined in the email from OSBA.
I don't think it's a legal obligation.
I don't know that,
Mhm.
but I do not think it would be in our best interest to do that. Again, no respect to Mr. Haggy, but I don't believe that we have the ability to do that without some of the steps that were outlined in the email from OSBA.
Did not find any board policy that spoke specifically to naming of facilities. There's obviously things about, you know, taking gifts from the boosters, selling facilities. There was nothing that I found in our policy that addressed that.
The points that OSBA had was that we just need to establish a policy about how we're gonna go about with naming.
Right.
So.
Because once we do that, we open up the doors to the community wanting to name all kinds of things after people, which I have no problem doing, but I think there has to be a process by which we follow for every request that would come in to name something after somebody. And we don't have that policy in place, and it needs to be put in place before we would consider doing that.
But even a process would culminate at this desk.
Correct.
It would
Correct. We
culminate.
would have to
So
discuss
what
a
would we
process
know
policy.
about Jess Hagee and his service that might disqualify naming our gym after him?
I don't know that there's anything that would disqualify him. I just don't think we have the ability this evening to approve that motion to do so. We need to establish a policy, and that has to be done by the board, you know, and to just establish a policy right here and now is not conducive.
I believe there's a bit of a community engagement piece that's recommended to do that as well. I couldn't give you the specifics
Hind
sitting here.
Amphitheater.
The-
You know what the Hind Amphitheater is?
Yes, I do. That was a donation from an Eagle Scout.
I see.
From Dexter Fortune, I believe, when he was earning his Eagle Scout. He did that whole amphitheater, outdoor amphitheater,
beautiful.
and donated that back to the school.
But we have a sign, we have a plaque, we have a name.
Okay. I don't know. I just know that was his Eagle Scout
Right,
project.
right, and it's beautiful.
Same with, you know, the baseball field with Jim Campbell and Dick Klein.
Campbell Klein, no problem. But all of a sudden now, after naming, and actually this board approved unanimously Campbell Klein Field. That's I'm curious about. All of a sudden, oh, it's the gym and it's Jess Hagee and we need a process. That's what I don't understand.
And like I said, I had no disrespect to Mr. Hagee. He was a wonderful teacher. I am just going on the recommendation from OSBA, from their legal department, from their standpoint on these are the steps that need to be followed to name a facility in a school after a person.
Yeah, OSBA recommended a process. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, and then also, you know, you're on the Tiger Hall of Fame, and very carefully, I've been on a few years as well. The members that are invited to be in the Hall of Fame, and they have to have, you know, certain qualifications, and that group has to vote on it. And I think I'd really like to see, like what Jody's saying, and this will be the new group, to establish a policy for naming, and then at that point, his name can be brought forward and put in. I just don't feel comfortable doing it tonight. And I guess I look at, like, obviously, you know, Jim Campbell had a tremendous professional career with the Detroit Tigers. He gave millions of dollars to Huron City Schools to invest in human capital, our students every year with scholarships. And, you know, Dick Klein obviously had as long of a tenure. I just don't know. I look at like somebody like Don Wood, who has multiple state championships, 30 plus years in, and
3+
where do you
decades,
say
yeah.
this person over that person? That's why I guess I'd rather have a little bit of a vetting process before that particular part of our district, that part of our high school. And again, I love Jesse. I don't have a problem, you know, supporting something for him. I don't even know, because we have so many successful coaches in our, that were part of our gymnasium. If there's maybe a different way to do it, I know they're all in the Hall of Fame, so I mean, that's already a given, but is there any kind of like special recognition? We've got the banners for like our conference wins and state titles and that. Is there something that we could do that would recognize extraordinary achievements by coaches that were in the gym to show their success? So that might be an option too.
Yeah, we could decide to do a Coaches Hall of Fame, and that could be in the gymnasium. Coach, because, you know, when you think about Dick Lennis, you think about Dino Caparini, you think about Don Wood, you think about Jess Hagee, there's so many. So many
This has a
that are
state
deserving.
championship. Yeah.
Yeah, so many that are deserving, and I think we need a policy and we need a process. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
I respect that, but I'm going to kind of offer another twist on that. We just voted on tips involving millions of dollars, like that. I want to name a gym. Oh, wait a second, this is serious. Seems kind of funny to me. That's my perspective on that.
Well, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying not tonight.
I understand. I understand. So we have a motion and a second.
Can we table it again so it's not like,
Uh,
because if you say no, then this.
Well, I voted to untable it. So if you vote no, it actually is simply,
You didn't vote, you made a motion.
I made a motion and it was seconded.
So discussion.
But so a no vote simply means we're not untabling it. So, right, so even if we do call a vote, it's not an up or down to name it Jess Hagee Gymnasium. It's a down vote to untable it. It would remain on the table.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Madam Treasurer.
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Mrs. Green,
No.
Mr. Slocum, Mrs. Mast. Motion
Table.
So we left it on the
Fails.
table.
That's right.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Right.
I mean,
Thank
very seriously, we talked about it a little bit after, you know, we had a little discussion during the baseball. There was a little back and forth, and we said we need a policy, we just never.
Around to it.
I believe. Any other new business before this board? Hearing none. Motion, next meeting, January 4th. Organization, 6 p.m. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Madam Chair.
Mrs. Mast,
Yes.
Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Slocum,
Yes.
Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Yep.
Sorry.
Oh,
but I
that's
just-
right.
Yeah, I'd rather.
As I said, I respect it.
Because we should have done that before.
I respect it, but I also want to shed light on. We've done it before,
Yeah, I know.
so we're a
The
bit
thing of it is,
inconsistent. But
We haven't even had this meeting.
who can
We're
argue
working on the agenda for that.
against the policy? Policies are good.
Chad, thanks for your
Just
service
keep
too.
wearing the
I miss you
lowrider.
guys. See you around the neighborhood maybe. Quit giving out too much good Halloween candy. You make us all look like
away more than I gave.
I'll be in contact with you, you know, obviously. What did you guys decide about the trees? Is Buckeye gonna come? Are Rick and Al gonna be able to handle that? Okay, it's, okay, I'm gonna like go over with my sister and just pick up the stones and put them on somebody else's tree, but, you know, they wanna redo that whole corner when we get the track done. It's always fun where the long jump and the pole vault are, so really, we shouldn't be putting anything over there. You know, that all needs to be raised up and more drainage, and so it kinda like is a little bit of a blessing. But we're thinking like if we take all these stones and even like put them behind the stadium. I'll see you around town. I know. Thanks, Jody. That would kind of like maybe be more noticed, because nobody walks around and reads all of those, but if they're right up against the building where it's all crushed stone, it would be a really nice, like kind of a memorial alley or whatever. Now, as far as the ones out in the